Well, it is the 19th of September 2023, 5 days after the Energy, Petroleum and Regulatory Authority placed the fuel pump at an all-time high of 211. 5 days later, what are the effects? We're trying to look into that particular matter this particular morning. Welcome to the show. This is News Check. I am your host, Abdiaziz Hashim, and I'll be having a panel this particular morning to be discussing around the matter of the cost of living. Has it been exacerbated by the increase of fuel prices in the country? Petrol now retailing at 211. And will the government-to-government oil exportation and importation try to salvage this particular matter? Now, let me just give you a little bit of statistics before I tell you what we have in store for you this morning. Is that the latest InfoTrack polls placed 85 Kenyans concerned about the high cost of living and urgently requiring the government to at least address this particular matter. Now, last year it was placed at 72, 13% of Kenyans arguing it is at all-time high. Now, the 72% of Kenyans were concerned last year, but the matter has been exacerbated to the extent 85% of Kenyans right now are saying that the government requires to at least address this particular matter. On the other side of TIFA, placed it at 58% of Kenyans, the respondents saying that the cost of living 1 year later on has not been reduced. But in that particular report, interestingly, is that 37% will say that the reduction of the cost of living compared to the 29% who are of the opinion that the government will deliver on job creation. You do remember this was among the key pillars President William Ruto assured Kenyans that he will deliver on. That is what we're centering our conversation. You can also join us at Abdiaziz Hashim at KBC Channel 1. What do you think about the cost of living and what should be done this particular morning? Who will be joining me this particular morning will be Arnold Maliba, a public policy analyst. Arnold, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Karibu sana. And of course, we'll be conversing with him in just a bit. But let me tell you our itinerary this particular morning. We do have our various reporters stationed in various parts of the country. I do understand our senior reporter from Kisumu, Achola Simon, will be chiming in into this particular conversation from the Lakeside City. We also have a function that will be carried on by His Excellency, the Governor of Nairobi, Johnson Sakaja, on the school feeding program at Olympic Primary in Kibera. And of course, we have our reporter stationed there. The other part is on the sports edition, where the Ministry of Youth and the Arts and Sport invites the media on the stadium handover of the refurbishment of the development part of the East Africa Pamoja and preparation. We saw the Cabinet Secretary a little bit earlier on in terms of the Talanta Hela. We also do understand that the clergy will be addressing members of the Fourth Estate in regards to the recent ruling by the Supreme Court on the LGBTQ matter. And then finally, just adjacent to the Kenya Broadcasting Corporation here at Norfolk, it will be the African Parliamentarians Network Against Corruption. Kenya chapter opposes proposed amendments to the Anti-Corruption and Economic Crimes Act of 2023. We have our reporter Kasichana Masha, and she'll duly inform us in the next few minutes. But I want to start this particular conversation with Arnold Maliba, a public policy analyst. Arnold, welcome once more to the show. You do understand that the cost of living has been a matter up for discussion for the last few years in this particular country. It is not a new norm, as you're well aware, but to the extent that it has reached to where it is now. Last year, InfoTrack placed it at 72. Right now, 85% of Kenyans are concerned about the high cost of living. Is there a cause for concern?
There's definitely cause for concern because there are two things here. We're talking about well-being, individual well-being as a people, and then of course financial stability. So the cost of living is a function, or rather is a product of very many functions.
Yes.
First of all, there's the issue of inflation. That is a subject that we'll talk about on its own. Of course, there's the issue of unemployment and underemployment.
Yeah.
Then, of course, there's the housing bit of it. It's quite a list of so many things. But normally when we talk about the cost of living in this country, a lot of times we rush to only talk about two things, food and fuel.
Yes.
Even though fuel contributes quite
immensely
to literally everything else, but it's important to look at this. There's inflation, there's unemployment or employment status, how people are getting their income, there's the place of housing, then of course the energy costs, how we get energy, whether it's fuel or whatever it is, because we also have got other alternative sources to energy. We'll be talking about that later on. Of course, then now the biggest one is food prices, because there's the joke that do we live to eat or do we eat to live? Then of course there are two others that they take a backseat when we talk about the cost of living. The place of education. When we talk about cost of living, education should be part and parcel of it, because it is a primary need. And then finally health. So we normally start with health, we normally start with food, then energy, and that is where it stops. But then there's so much to actually talk about. So at the moment, of course, what is driving this particular conversation is fuel. About 50% of what we normally pay for fuel is taxes and levies. But then there is need to also explain why we have got those levies on that. When I was young, my father would pay road licenses separately, fuel levies. When we were young, because I was born in the 80s, I remember my father paying for his car different licenses. So you will find a lot of stickers at the windshield. Today, we've tried to ensure that out of efficiency and to actually ensure that there is equity. Because if all of us are going to pay for road usage license, for example, because at the end of the day, we have to maintain our roads, the usability and stuff, to ensure that the infrastructure is also working. Because again, if it doesn't work, it brings in inefficiency that will also reflect on the cost of living still. So all that list, when you're talking about road maintenance levy and anti-adulteration, all that, there are about 6-7 of them. Whatever they are, the wisdom was that if we take care of them at the fuel level, it brings in equity. So that then all of us are not paying equally. So whoever uses more pays more of it, as opposed to the days of old where it was uniform. Like if you have got a smaller car, then we charge all of you. So even if you're not going to use your car for 2-3 months to go so far, you still pay the same as that particular person who travels frequently.